Hi, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Adrienne.
And this is Scandal Sheets. Hello and welcome to All Lemurs All the Time, the podcast about everyone's favorite monkey, the lemur.
They are simian. Well, they're pro simian. So, but that is correct.
It is everyone's favorite monkey, or that they're not a monkey.
They are kind of a monkey because they're simian. I just know they're called pro simian, so they're before monkeys.
Oh,
yes.
So they're older than monkeys.
I don't know. No, sorry. Prehistoric is before history, so pro-simian would be after the simian period.
That means absolutely nothing to me. So.
All I know is that lemurs are the most beautiful and adorable and amazing creatures that I've ever seen. So many of at one time.
I agree. I'm a particular fan of the ringtail lemur.
So amazing.
Okay, so maybe we should actually introduce the show.
Yeah.
No, you have not landed in an alternate universe. This is the Scandal Sheets podcast. We decided to devote the first little bit to lemurs because... Yeah. Adrienne.
I got to see them the last weekend on Saturday. So shout out to Duke Lemur Center. I had a weekend away in the Research Triangle, which is one of my new favorite places
of North Carolina.
Get away to, like kind of close.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah. So Raleigh, Chapel Hill, Durham, Carborough, if you're being picky. But
so then it would be a quadrangle.
Yeah. Well, Carborough and Chapel Hill are kind of the same thing.
Is that right? That would be 5.
And Duke University has a lemur center, research center, non-invasive. So they study the behavior of lemurs to try to help because they are so endangered because they only exist in Madagascar, and for various reasons, including hunting and habitat, they're just being lost at great rates, and it's sad. So I went to see the lemurs. It was just a regular tour. They also do the behind the scenes, which I would probably just be in a puddle on the floor if I could get any closer to a lemur. But right. So but we are not here to talk about lemurs, but I had to give a shout out to Duke Lemur Center, and the reason that I have maybe not done as thorough notes this week as I typically do because
you were distracted.
I'm just filled
by
with
lemurs.
Yeah,
we'll blame the lemurs.
Dreaming of lemurs.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us on the Scandal Sheets. This week we are going to discuss the $1 Million Theater in Los Angeles, and not really a scandal that happened there. It was more of a scandal associated with a person who knew the guy who opened the theater.
So Sid Grumman has some sort of adversary.
Well, no, he was actually a friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know nothing.
Yeah, actually, I decided to have a little fun with Adrienne this episode and not tell her what I'm talking about. So these are all live reactions to when I get to my part.
I mean, they usually are.
Yeah, that's true. They are.
Fairly live.
Yeah, they are live.
Yeah, except sometimes I just am a little bit more aware of what's going on than I am now.
That's okay. We'll blame the lemurs.
Yep.
So you wanna start us off with a little bit of info about the $1 Million Theater, which
I do have a little bit of information.
I think it's creepy looking, the interior of it.
It looks like it could come to life.
Yes,
a little bit.
It's like Hansel and Gretel, creepy.
It's like that terrible movie, The Haunting, with Lily Taylor, where they're in this house and it comes to life. That part is actually interesting, but the movie itself is terrible.
Wow,
it's like at least a decade old.
I don't know. I haven't seen that. Although
it has one of the Wilson, the blonde one.
Oh.
Luke, right?
Is it gory?
It's not It's not really, because I don't really like scary movies.
Yeah.
Anyway, so buildings coming to life, House on the Hill, The Haunting. Don't watch it. It's terrible. The $1 Million Theater, not The $1 Million Man. which is something else in historic shows.
It's like the 60s?
60s or 70s?
70s, yeah. I think it was the 70s.
Yeah, not seen it, but I know it's a thing. So the $1 Million Theater is one of the first and largest great movie palaces in the country. And it's for sure one of the greatest ones that is still standing to this day. Before William Randolph Hearst even approached Julia Morgan to build his castle, the $1 Million Theater was already welcoming lovers of new movies to its screen. Not talkies. Movies.
No, we're still in the silent film era.
The construction and opening of the theater was very well documented. There's a really good, the LA Conservancy has some nice information, but then there's another blog with basically every theater of LA, whether it's standing or not. Like, they have as much information as possible and images, and
I think it's Historic Theaters of LA or something like that. It's a foundation. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So there were scans of newspaper articles about the construction, what it looked like when it was under construction, and then the opening. And the photos, there were photos of the balcony, which was at its time like this really big deal, because it's 110 foot wide balcony there's no columns underneath it, so they have it's just open, unobstructed view
so
of the screen.
Gotta be completely in the structure of
correct
the balcony.
The balcony is supported by what's thought to be the world's first reinforced concrete girder, since steel was in short supply due to World War I.
Oh yeah. And
as completed, a Popular Mechanics article from the time stated that the balcony weighed 9 million pounds, which included the structure and seats and maybe some wrappers and junk. Other stuff that was left up there.
How is that possible?
I know, right? I kept coming, but they did some sort of sandbag test to make sure that the balcony would hold. And I think they weighed it down with 1.5 million pounds and made sure that it was structurally sound. And it was.
Okay. That sounds real foolproof.
Yeah, there's actually a picture of it. There's a picture of these guys standing on the balcony, and there's a bunch of sandbags. It's really interesting. And there's a picture of some of the other structure that was these really cool trusses, but they were made of concrete. They weren't steel trusses because of the shortage. So I guess they just used a lot of reinforced concrete. And I guess the teens, this is sort of when it started, that type of construction was starting to be really big, because if you remember, that's what Hearst Castle was as well. So some of the numbers of the $1 Million Theater, it originally sat 2,345 people, with 1,400 on the main floor and 945 on the balcony. And that number has gone down slightly. I'm not sure why, maybe with just the changing of equipment and maybe just trying to make it more comfortable or changing configuration. But it's now 2024 with 1,216 on the main floor and 808 in the balcony. So they weren't just taken out in one place. They took them out on the main floor and the balcony. The proscenium is 39 feet 11 with a height at the center of 47 feet.
For those of you who are uninitiated in theater lingo, the proscenium is the stage area, basically the opening, all that.
You say proscenium arch.
Right.
Okay. The stage depth is 32 foot 1 from the smoke pocket to the face of the back wall columns. A smoke pocket is a steel angle enclosing the edge of the asbestos curtain in a theater for keeping smoke and flames from getting into the theater in case of fire.
So we were talking about theaters. I was talking about my hometown, Spartanburg, South Carolina, has this super cool theater called the Carolina Theater. And it was constructed as an addition to this very large, they would have called it a skyscraper back then. It's maybe 10, 12 stories high. And it still has its original asbestos curtain with asbestos printed on the front of it. I don't even know how you go about preserving something like that.
I guess it's like asbestos siding or roofing or anything else, tile. If you don't touch it,
or don't mess with
fine.
it. Yeah. It's airborne, right?
Yes.
Fibers.
Correct. It doesn't off gas if you don't mess with it. The $1 Million Theater is not just a quaint nickname. It's actually the official name for what was Sid Grauman's very first movie palace. And you might know that name from the Grauman's, what is it, the Chinese theater?
That's correct.
That, like, a lot of people know because it's on the Walk of Fame.
Yes, he was the one who instituted that. It was basically, they were actually paving or pouring concrete out front of that theater, and some people say it was Mary Pickford, some people say it's not Nora Desmond, that's Sunset Boulevard. It was Nora, one of the Noras, who was the actress, tripped and fell and landed on the concrete.
Oh, and put her hands in the wet. Oh my god!
And that's what started the whole thing, where he started cataloging all the different actors and actresses.
That's really funny.
I know, yeah.
I had no idea. That's a good little bit of trivia. I mean, I've been once, and that movie palace is pretty fascinating, but I didn't know that's how the stars or the Walk of Fame got its start. The $1 Million Theater. That name is what was actually written on the construction fence, although the original signage just said Grauman's. So including the land, the office building, the theater, and the furnishings, the place cost over $1 million. So if anyone's curious, maybe Caroline could calculate what $1,019,18 are.
I have to go get my phone.
You should have memorized that after the Hearst Castle, when we were talking about how much Julia Morgan made. She made $70,000, and that was $1 million something, right?
Right.
So what would $1 million be? I don't know. Math.
That's not definitely not my strong suit.
Never mind. You guys could look it up too.
Yeah. Y'all look it up and let us know.
But the theater also happens to have a super famous building neighbor, the Bradbury Building, which was constructed in 1893 and featured in one of my all-time favorite movies, Blade Runner. So as for the important architectural stuff, the theater was designed by William Lee Willett, and the building was designed by Albert C. Martin, who was a very significant California architect at the time. Albert C. Martin, he's the one that designed this 60,000 square foot building. When I say the $1 Million Theater, that was only part of it. And I guess we see this a lot in Chicago. The what's his face? Sullivan's Auditorium comes to mind. So you see like an office building on the outside, and there are a few tips like scale, and usually there's some sort of marquee on the outside that indicates the presence of a theater.
Right, and that's the same way as it is
a high rise.
Right, and in Spartanburg, it's the Montgomery Building, and it's a very tall office building, and the marquee's been removed, and you wouldn't know that the theater's in there.
Sure.
But you would have accessed.
Yeah. You
could access it from the atrium inside.
Yeah.
And then you would have accessed it from the exterior as well.
Okay. So the exterior of the $1 Million Theater was designed in the Churrigueresque style.
I was waiting for you to pronounce that.
Yeah. It's a very interesting looking word that's sort of reminiscent of chimichanga or
Mexican food.
Yeah. There's something else. Chihuahua?
No, there's
some other food thing. Churros.
Well, churros, yeah, but
yeah, because the beginning chur is churr, which would be churro, but it's churrigueresque.
But it's like a style of drawing.
Oh, chiaroscuro.
Is that okay? I didn't know.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Also, isn't that Italian and not Spanish? Chiaroscuro.
No clue.
Okay.
It's all Spanish, Italian. It looks the same to me.
Well, they are fairly close. So Churrigueresque was named after an 18th century Spanish church architect and sculptor, Jose de Churriguera, whose designs favored this type of architectural embellishment. As we said before, it's something that looks like it could probably come to life. Most of the exterior sculpture was by Joseph Mora, but some work at the theater entrance was by Willett, who of course did the interior. Joseph Mora was a son of a famous Spanish sculptor, Domingo Mora, and he is the guy that designed the facade of the theater, which includes bison heads, longhorn steer skulls, allegorical figures representing the arts.
See, I said it was creepy.
Yeah, and even girls perched on ledges, strumming stringed instruments as their legs dangle above the street.
By the skulls. of the buffalo heads.
This is from the LA Conservancy, so they had some really good, again, some great